Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Before he was Johnny Dollar, he was George Valentine. Bob Bailey, along with Virginia-Gregg, in an episode of Let George Do It, from 73 years ago today, February 13th, 1950, Go Jump in the Lake. Thank you for joining us this day before Valentine's Day, a Monday, 13th day of February, 44th day of the year, 321 days remaining until we get to 2024. Jesse James and his gang committed the first armed bank robbery in U.S. history on this date in 1866 during peacetime in Liberty, Missouri. In 1899, Tallahassee, Florida recorded its all-time coldest temperature of 2 degrees below zero. In 1914, in New York City, the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, ASCAP, established to protect the copyrighted musical compositions of its members. A good idea most of the time. The problem is when it protects the works of musicians and copyrighted compositions hundreds of years after their death. That's the problem. The Negro National League formed on this date in 1920. 1935, a jury in Flemington, New Jersey, found Bruno Hauptmann guilty of the 1932 kidnapping and murder of the Lindbergh baby, the son of Charles Lindbergh, on this date in 1935. 1971, backed by American air and artillery support, South Vietnamese troops invaded Laos. Grease opening on Broadway on this date in 1972, and in the movies, Cabaret. In 1974, Soviet dissident Alexander Solzhenitsyn stripped of his Soviet citizenship and departed Russia. In this clip, he talks of democracy.
I say that democracy is not at its end at all. What I did say was that there is a decline in the will and in the self-confidence of the democracies, and my purpose is somehow to inspire them, inspire their will, make their will more self-confident and more firm.
In 1990, his Soviet citizenship restored. In 1994, he returned to Russia with his wife Natalia, who had become a United States citizen. Alexander Solzhenitsyn passing away of heart failure in 2008. A fire erupting in the World Trade Center in New York on this date in 1975. The intense February 13, 1979 windstorm struck western Washington and sunk a half-mile-long section of the Hood Canal Bridge. 2 laser-guided smart bombs destroyed a bunker in Baghdad on this date in 1991. The bunker was being used as a military communications outpost and, unknown to Allied forces, as a shelter for Iraqi citizens. In 1997, tune-up and repair work on the Hubble Space Telescope started by astronauts from the Space Shuttle Discovery. The last original Peanuts comic strip appeared in newspapers on this date in 2000, one day after Charles M. Schulz died. An earthquake measuring 6.6 on the Richter scale hit El Salvador on this date in 2001.
It really and truly is horrific. If you see the conditions that these people are in, and to have this sort of fear put in them again is a very debilitating thing. I know right now the Red Cross is looking for more people to come in to be able to help with mental health issues, just getting people, trying to think positively and realize that things may be okay.
At least 400 people killed in that 2001 earthquake in El Salvador. In 2004, the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics announced the discovery of the world's largest known diamond white dwarf star, BPM 37093. Astronomers named this star Lucy, after the Beatles song, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. It was on this date 2 years ago today. A major winter storm caused blackouts and killed at least 82 people in Texas and northern Mexico. It taught a lot of people in Texas something that we've known up here in northern Nevada for years. We get hot here. We get cold here. The same insulation that keeps hot things hot keeps cold things cold. And vice versa. You know, we don't have to use as much electricity or as much energy to heat our homes up here, and we don't have to use as much energy to cool our homes for that exact same reason. Insulation is a beautiful thing, and a lot of people in Texas have not done all they should do to take care of that. Passing away on this date in history, composer Richard Wagner, also soprano Lily Pons, actor David Jansen, actor Martin Balsam, musician Waylon Jennings, Pro Bowler Dick Weber. I loved the smoothness of that man's approach. And also from the Waltons, Ralph Waite. Former First Lady and the wife of President Harry S. Truman, Bess Truman, born on this date in history. Painter Grant Wood, musician Tennessee Ernie Ford. Also 56 years as head football coach at Grambling University, Eddie Robinson, born on this date. NASA official and pilot Chuck Yeager. The McGuire sisters, Dorothy McGuire. Actor George Segal. Actor Oliver Reed. The Monkees, Peter Tork, born on this date. Game show host Jeff Edwards. And musician King Floyd. Turning 90 today, the wonderful actress Kim Novak. From the Walking Tall sequels, Bo Svensson, 82. I did not know that Bo Svensson had a judo black belt. I did not know that. From Grease, the motion picture, and The West Wing, Stockard Channing, 79. Also 79 today, Jerry Springer. I did not know that his judge show, Judge Jerry, was canceled. I saw a couple of episodes of it on YouTube, and I thought, well, this isn't bad at all. From Genesis, Peter Gabriel, 73. Actor-singer David Naughton, Makin' It was his big hit, 72 years old today. Fitness expert Denise Austin, 66. Musician Henry Rollins is 62. And from Nash Bridges and Arrow, Kelly Hugh is 55. Those some of the people celebrating the 13th day of February is their birthday. If this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the four freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
And from 73 years ago today, February 13th, 1950, Bob Bailey and Virginia-Gregg starring in Let George Do It and Go Jump in the Lake. Thank you so much for joining us for this Monday edition of Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station. Thank you for tuning in on this Monday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Before he took the role of Johnny Dollar, he was George Valentine in this West Coast program that was originally sponsored by Standard Oil, as I recall. It was Bob Bailey along with Virginia-Gregg in the series Let George Do It. This episode goes back to February 13th, 1950, in which George Valentine is told to go jump in the lake.
Personal notice. Danger's my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Greetings, mystery lover. Time for another Let George Do It adventure. Now, what would you do if I were to say, go jump in the lake? Well, you might say, which one? Or, I can't swim. Or maybe that I should go to... Well, we'll forget that one, because that's the title of our story, Go Jump in the Lake. And all I can say is that this tale is very definitely not all wet.
Dear Mr. Valentine, or rather I should say, dear Miss Brooks, because if you're anything like I am, you open all your boss's letters. And now that you have, it's really you that I'm writing to, Miss Brooks. I need your help to get Mr. Valentine's help. You see, I work for the same kind of a man you do. He likes trouble, and so he's always in it. His name is Terrence Doyle, and he's vice president of the Consolidated Machine Tool Company. Of course, he would never admit how desperately he needs help, and right now. So please, Miss Brooks, bring that help quick. Otherwise, it won't be long until I'm taking dictation from a corpse. Sincerely, Miss Mona Chandler.
Well, let's try this one, Angel. Uh-oh.
I think you're in the wrong office.
Excuse us, we were just looking for...
Sales department's down on the next floor. Employment's out at the plant.
We're looking for Miss Mona Chandler.
She's an old friend of mine.
Oh. Well, Miss Chandler's pretty busy this afternoon. I asked you to run through some financial statements.
Oh, sure, we realize, but... you did, huh?
That's right. And she's out. Perhaps if you called later, you could speak... Oh, so I'm a liar. You got back quick, Miss Chandler. Any reason?
No, sir. He's not back yet.
All right. Friends of yours.
Mr. Valentine?
I'm Claire Brooks, Mona.
Oh, thanks for making it so fast. Sit down, won't you?
Yeah, thanks. That boss of yours throws out quite a welcome mat.
Yes, and Mona, he's not quite... Well, I expected something a little more Earl Flynnish.
What? Oh, no. No, Mr. Doyle's out of town for the day. That was Gil Frank. Mr. Frank. He's the other vice president. He's quite different.
Oh, I get it.
You mean you're not in love with him?
I'd like both of you to understand I don't love Mr. Doyle. Well, you can only take so much adrenaline, you know, and I got over that a long time ago. So I'm not being just silly about anything, Mr. Valentine.
All right. But in your letter, you weren't very specific either.
I know it.
And if Terrence Doyle is in trouble and wants help, that's one thing. But suppose he tells me to go jump in the lake.
Oh, he'd never do that, Mr. Valentine. He'd just throw you in himself. That's the way he is. I don't know exactly what the trouble is. I'd try to ask him about it, but he just laughs.
Uh-huh. And so you want me to pose as a palm reader. Well, look, lady...
Well, do you think it's normal for a bright young businessman to get mixed up with a lot of thugs and to have to stay at work at night because in the daytime he's busy dodging strange callers?
Well, Mona, that's still
I've nursed him through escapades with heiresses and fights with newspapermen, but this is different, Mr. Valentine. It is. Do you think it's normal for a man who loves publicity to jump a foot every time the telephone rings?
Nervous condition.
Mr. Valentine, do you think a man should have to sneak out and buy himself a gun?
Go on. I'm listening.
I know I'm not very specific, but I'm positive he's finally gotten mixed up in something that's way over his head.
What about that gun?
Well, he bought one day before yesterday, and he got a permit to carry it for self-protection just because this office handles money sometimes. But that isn't it. He's in danger. He's being watched. He's being threatened. I know he is. And look what came this morning, a package addressed to him. You see? Just addressed in printing, but I've already opened it. Here.
Well.
Mr. Doyle.
Home again, sweetheart.
Mr. Doyle, these are friends of mine, Miss Brooks.
How do you do?
Oh, pleasure. I like friends.
And Mr. Valentine.
Well, go on, sweetheart. Open the box of candy.
Oh, it's addressed to you, sir. I already didn't.
What would I be doing without her? Probably stab myself in the letter knife. She'd open anything, including
But
a
Mr.
heart.
Doyle, look at it.
What?
Look what it is. Somebody sent you a second gun. Only see? It's broken. They've broken it right across
Let me see that. Broken gun, huh?
And there's no note or anything. But it means a gun won't do any good, doesn't it, Mr. Doyle? Isn't that what it means? Somebody knows you bought the other one, and now they're telling you it won't do any good to protect yourself. Well, isn't it? Mr. Doyle, look at it.
I did, so what? By the way, where's Gloomy Gil?
We're going back to the plant, I guess, sir. But Mr. Doyle...
Oh, take the day off, sweetheart. But, you, Mr. Valentine, may I see you for a minute? My My secretary thinks I'm in trouble, doesn't she?
Never mind the understatement. What's this all about?
She's in love, you know. That stretches a woman's vision. Carries a torch for a blind man. That stick of a man, Gil Frank, only he's too sober to
I
look
said,
at it.
what's this all about? What's with you?
No reason I should tell you, of course.
No. Except I like to keep ladies happy. And I'd rather stop trouble before it happens than pick up the bloody ends of it.
Gambling. Yours truly is a few thousand behind in meeting his gambling debts. Now you have it.
Suppose I told you were lying again.
Oh, get out of here, will you?
If you think the way you act, Buster, fits in with just a little gambling mix-up, you're crazier than I thought you were.
It's none of your business, Valentine. Give me that phone.
No, I've got it. Hello?
Hello, this is Mr. Doyle's office, isn't it?
That's right.
Then let me speak to him, please.
Who shall I say is...
If you please, I said, will you let me speak to Mr. Doyle?
All right, Valentine. Now let me have it. Thanks. Hello? Oh. Yeah, this is Doyle. Hang on a second, will you? Goodbye, Mr. Valentine.
Okay, sucker, be the big shot. Be the one-man band.
Now, look here, Valentine, I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you, but I just... Well, I don't want to spread this danger, that's all.
That's how people get a quick spread on a tombstone.
What if it is? I can take care of myself. I can take care of everything. Now, beat it. Go jump in the lake.
But, Mr. Valentine, listen to me. After you went out of the office, Mr. Doyle was still talking on the telephone to somebody.
I know, Mom.
I opened the door by mistake, and I heard him screaming, "I'm not afraid of you nor any of your thugs."
Where's Gil Frank?
I tried to get him to meet you here, Mr. Valentine, the way you asked. I know he can help us because he's noticed the way Mr. Doyle's been acting, too. But I couldn't find him at supper time, and now he's back at the office. And when I rang there, Mr. Doyle himself answered and said that Gil had taken his car out to get some sandwiches, and why did I want him?
Okay, I'll find him at his home later on.
Well, I do have some more work back at the office. And...
Oh, what kind of work, Mona?
Mr. Valentine, I've been going over some of the financial things, and one of our accounts is a little short.
What?
Well, I don't mean anything wrong. And a regular audit doesn't come up till the first anyway, but a special cash account for the executives, well, one of them has had to borrow a little, I guess.
How much?
A few thousand.
One of those cases, huh? Well, I was told to go jump in the lake. So why don't you just go on
back?
But,
Mr. Valentine, you are going to help, aren't you? I mean, you just can't just leave
I don't know
me
what I'm going to do. Maybe nothing. I don't know. I said go on back to the office. Good night.
But, Mr. Valentine...
Good night, Mona.
But, George, I thought you said you weren't going to handle the case.
The fewer people know I'm crazy, the better, Angel. Now, listen. Guy phoned you. You can hear a Roomba band in the background. The guy talking might be a gambler. Question, where is he phoning from?
Oh, a Roomba band. Well, the only place I know... The Club 50?
Uh-huh. So the guy who telephones just might be the owner of the Club 50, Starky Bennett, one of the biggest crooks in town. That'd be trouble enough for anybody, even Doyle.
Hello? Yes, hello.
It's him, all right, Angel, same voice.
Who is this?
This is George Valentine speaking, Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Valentine.
Well, if you prefer, you can just call me Better Business Bureau.
What's that?
That's right, Mr. Bennett. Investigations Department. It's in regard to a minor debt collection. Just routine, you know. Name of the party is, here we are. Terrence Doyle.
Doyle?
Just thought you might know him. Heard he's traded with you and...
Yes, of course. I know Mr. Doyle.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Ever matched pennies or anything?
Young man, Doyle's just a drinking acquaintance, but he pays for his drinks and I pay for mine.
Oh, nothing on the cuff. A few thousand, maybe.
No, a very sweet boy, Terrence Doyle. Why? He in trouble someplace else?
Someplace else? No, Mr. Bennett, I don't think so.
Young man, you're making a mistake. I haven't seen Doyle for a long time. We're no longer in touch.
The heck you're not. And how about Gil Frank? You after him, too?
Gil Frank? I'm afraid I've never even heard the name. See here, young man, where are you calling from? There's something about that music.
That's a little familiar? I'm calling from your own club, Mr. Bennett, from downstairs. Can I come up?
Downstairs? Well, how convenient, Mr. Valentine. How convenient for my men to throw you out.
Here we are, number 316.
Yeah.
Not a lot of cooperation in this one. From February 3rd, 1950, Bob Bailey, Virginia-Gregg, Let George Do It, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The news from 73 years ago today follows these important words from your favorite radio station. Here's Mike Lindell talking about getting your best friend something special.
And Mike, you've done it again. You've brought us an amazing line of dog beds.
This has been a long time coming. It starts with the same patented fill for your dogs now as we do my pillow. I wanted everything covered in sizes from your largest dog to your smallest dog. You can throw them in the washer and dryer. The dogs love it. They asked, and here they are. This is why you get the dog bed. This is the main reason. The dogs love it.
And you've got that 10-year warranty, right?
I can do it because the dogs love it. They don't want to wreck their bed.
And you can get these MyPillow dog beds at a price lower than the big box stores, as low as $19.95. Call 1-800-928-4715, 1-800-928-4715, or go to mypillow.com/pet and use my promo code Wyatt. Treat your best friend to a MyPillow dog bed, mypillow.com/pet. Promo code Wyatt. Thanks for spending part of your Monday with us here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We're listening to an episode of Let George Do It, as it was originally broadcast on Monday, February 13th, 1950. In the newspapers of that Monday 73 years ago, these were some of the headlines. Angry soft coal miners continued their nationwide no contract, no work strike full blast today, ignoring both John L. Lewis's work order and a federal court injunction. In some areas, lack of an official notification is delaying a decision by United Mine Worker locals on obeying their chieftain's order to return to the pits forthwith. No mines are operating in the large bituminous soft coal producing areas except unorganized or independent union pits and those covered by new contracts with the United Mine Workers. Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Indiana, Illinois, Alabama, Ohio, and other important coal states all report the strike is as strong this week as last. Determined strikers vow they'll stay out until they get a contract. Senator Eleanor, the Democrat of Louisiana, contends that President Truman's handling of the coal strike will cost the Democrats thousands of votes in the congressional elections next fall. The Democrat of Minnesota, Senator Humphrey, commented, "I doubt it, but the important issue is the welfare of the American people, not votes." Ellender, who helped draft the Taft-Hartley law in 1947, told a reporter it was inexcusable for Mr. Truman to have waited as long as he did to invoke the law in the mine dispute. Republicans today pressed new attacks on what they called communist infiltration into the government. In the forefront of the drive, Senators Martin, the Republican of Pennsylvania, and McCarthy, the Republican of Wisconsin, they demanded investigations of charges that the Truman administration is riddled with communists, and that the State Department has 57 card-carrying party members on its rolls. McCarthy, who made the latter charge, wrote President Truman over the weekend demanding that the 57 be fired, quoting, "Failure on your part to act will label the Democrat Party as being the bedfellow of international communism." A high State Department official declared today that the Iron Curtain is indispensable to maintenance of the communist dictatorship in Stalin. Premier Stalin knows that not even a dictatorship can retain power and control except by the consent of the people. Howland Sargent, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Public Affairs, told reporters. Therefore, he said, the Iron Curtain is indispensable. His remarks in an address before the Inland Press Association. Communist leaders whipped up a bitter hate campaign against the U.S. and Britain in Soviet-occupied East Germany, the 5th anniversary of the destructive bombing of Dresden, the ancient center of German culture, by fleets of American and British planes. Royal Air Force records of the February 13 to 15 air raids not made public, but news accounts indicated that the raids were intended to assist the army of Soviet Marshal Georgy Zhukov advancing from the east. In the ruins of the old Saxon capital today, all street traffic was ordered stopped for 1 minute of silence at noon. Federal prosecutors from all parts of the country met with Attorney General McGrath today in what may herald the start of a nationwide community drive against slot machines. While the federal government has no power to act against gamblers as a usual thing, McGrath's annual closed-door meeting with U.S. district attorneys will be followed by a federal local crime conference at which the so-called one-armed bandits are expected to get close scrutiny. Mrs. It, the ghost of number 13 Highworth Road in Bristol, England, back again with a playmate. Only 3 weeks ago, the haunt exorcised by a Church of England vicar in a religious rite to drive away spirits taken from early Christian records. The piece of number 13 short-lived. Mr. and Mrs. William Babber, who live in the house, say the ghost now does a nightly routine up and down the stairs with an unidentified partner. Sometimes it sounds like they're dancing, sometimes like they're wrestling. And in Syracuse, New York, Mr. and Mrs. Lester Lincoln feel sure that future schoolmates will nickname their son Abe. The baby, named Charles, born on Sunday, Abraham Lincoln's birthday. He was named for a grandfather. Those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Monday, February 13th, 1950 on your radio. Let George Do It, which continues now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
At least Gil Frank shouldn't have any reason not to talk, unless he's already asleep in bed.
You mean if he knows anything? George, that Starky Bennett must be really mixed up with Doyle.
Sure, but how? Who'll tell us? Apparently Bennett would like us to think it's nothing but a little minor debt or two.
Not the way Doyle's acted and the gun and everything. Because Starky Bennett is mixed up with a lot worse things than gambling in this town, and maybe...
Yeah, maybe nobody's answering the door. I wonder if there's a chance we could...
George, listen.
Huh?
No, outside, coming up the street.
Huh? Oh, no. Mr. Frank. Mr. Frank.
George, look at him. His face, there's blood on it, and his clothes are torn.
Yeah, here, I've got him. Oh, this guy didn't just tie one on, Angel. Mr. Frank, can you hear me?
I'm going home. Let go. That's my home there.
He's been beaten up.
Yeah.
Well, at least he needs help. It's Mr. Valentine, Gil. Do you understand? Can you give us your keys?
Valentine?
That's right, friend. Now, just take it easy and I'll get you...
No, get away. Leave me alone.
What?
Leave me alone. I'm all right. Just a little accident, that's all. Go on, stay out of it. Don't jump in the lake.
Well, that does it. He swung so hard he fell in himself. Brooksy, at last I got company in that lake.
From 73 years ago, February 13th, 1950, Let George Do It on this Monday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Jack Benny on Tuesday's Valentine's Day Classic Radio Theater. 14th of February was Jack Benny's birthday. This recording from his birthday 69 years ago, February 14th, 1950. It was Jack's birthday. Is it the 39th or the 40th? It was actually his 60th. And Joan Benny reads Mary's lines in this master recording of the show. This goes back, as I said, 69 years ago. That's coming up tomorrow on Classic Radio Theater. But now, the conclusion of Let George Do It, February 13th, 1950, 73 years ago today.
And now, back to George Valentine. Terrence Doyle is in trouble. There's no question about that. But he's not the kind of man who's willing to ask for help. Nor is Starky Bennett, the gambler, who has already had you thrown out of his Club 50 once this evening. But Mr. Frank is a little different from the others. He's been beaten up. And as you carry him into his house and examine his bruises, you know that here at least is one man who doesn't have enough strength left to throw you out.
You don't like Doyle, do you, Mr. Frank? He's big and flashy.
I hate him. We have the same job, but he gets all the credit. He's faster than I am, sharper, more guts. Oh, look, I feel horrible. What am I saying all this for?
Because you're toying with the idea of being a heel, a real first-class heel?
But they told me they'd kill me if I said anything.
All right, then. Die a hero. In concrete.
Concrete?
What are you talking about, George?
That's cement dust all over the back of your coat, Mr. Frank. Most alleys don't have that. Simple.
I wanted you to go away, Mr. Valentine, to let things happen. It'd be so easy. I don't know what Doyle's mixed up in, but he's always in trouble, and I have to help protect him.
And this time you were going to let him die?
No, I would have told the minute I got around to my senses.
Well, then start telling, Buster. You left the office. It was night. Doyle's known to be the one who works at night. You went out to the alley where his car was parked. It was dark. And you walked right up to his car, hauling out his keys. Probably
Sure. They thought I was Doyle. There were two men, Mr. Valentine. I never did get a good look at them. Just guys in overcoats. Midwestern accent, though. Anyway, I put up a pretty good fight until one of them got me over the head. Next thing I knew, I was in the back seat of a car. A big convertible it was. My pockets were inside out, and I heard them talking. They were mad about something. They had my wallet and stuff, identification card with a picture. I remember one of them said something about a mistake. Then they slammed on the brakes and kicked me out of the car into the gutter. That was it. That's what happened.
Uh-huh. What else was in the back of that car besides cement?
Some baling wire, a couple of chains.
George.
Yeah. A concrete coffin designed for Doyle. All right, Busty, you were pretty lucky. Taken for a ride, only they gave you a transfer.
I intended to tell, of course. It's what happened. Say, what are you doing? You believe me, don't you, Mr. Valentine?
What difference does it make? I'm calling Doyle's office to see if there's a...
Hello?
Wow, Mona. What are you doing there?
Mr. Valentine? Well, I told you I had work to do. Only there's a policeman here, a friend of yours, a Lieutenant Johnson.
What? Where's your boss? Where's Doyle?
I don't know, Mr. Valentine. We just found his office is empty. He's disappeared.
14 minutes after midnight, and in honor of your name, I probably won't get any sleep until the next midnight.
Oh, forget it, Johnson.
Now, you take, for instance, two thugs from Kansas City.
What's that?
Oh, yes, my friend. The police department's ever alert. Two of the roughest monkeys in the Midwest showed up in town today.
The two guys who kidnapped Frank, huh?
Who else? Hired hands. Do any kind of a job without disturbing the local boys' manicures. Explains how they made a mistake.
You mean the first time?
And something else. The girl here finds some more money missing.
That's right, Mr. Valentine. From several of the accounts.
Okay, Johnson, I didn't tell you this was a peanut case.
Who in this town would hire thugs like those two? And who'd like to get a businessman all mixed up with him so he could engineer a pipeline into a rich company's books? Sweat a man into dipping into the till for maybe a few $100,000. Then have the thugs rub him out before any link between them was found.
All right. Send some boys out after Starky Bennett.
I already have.
But where's Doyle? He's the kingpin. Let's find him while he can still talk.
Mr. Doyle is down at the plant.
Huh?
Yeah, he's all right for a while. Noticed his car was gone, didn't you?
Well, after you called, we found a note. He went to meet the plant manager about something. It's just business.
That, Miss Chandler?
Yeah, take a look here, Mr. Frank. Mona, somebody at Harbor Plant phone says plant manager wants to see me. Urgent. Tell Gil where
Here, please.
What's the matter, handwriting?
No, it's his, all right. But I was down at the plant in the late afternoon. I thought I told Doyle. The plant manager wasn't feeling well. He went home to go to bed.
So Doyle's all right for a while, huh, Johnson? Going to meet the little man who isn't there.
Come on.
Any sign of him out front?
Nobody's car's out there with the side entrance empty.
The night watchmen are all inside. They didn't see anything.
Well, there's no reason they would, Lieutenant. But I checked them all to see if anyone had telephoned the office from here.
And they hadn't, of course. And the plant manager is in bed. There was a phony call to sucker Doyle out
Hey,
here.
Lieutenant,
Yes, Sergeant?
Found a man here who works in a service station down the road.
Okay, let's have it.
Just by the bend there. Harbor service, we call it. Only things are kind of slow at night.
Come on, what'd you say?
Well, there was 2 cars, sir. I mean, just a little while ago, that car of Mr. Doyle's came driving by. I see him stop there by the plant.
Yeah?
But there was this other big car parked there already. And when he drove up, a couple of men got out and went over to him, and they put him in their car, a convertible, and drove off.
Oh, go on.
I saw they had him sitting in the front seat with the driver, and the other 2 guys were in the back seat to watch him, I guess.
Which way to go?
Down to Ocean Road, Bay Road, the one that goes to the pier.
Off the pier, huh? Well, Valentine, if at first you don't succeed, try again. They got him this time.
Don't be so sure, friend. It takes time to build a concrete coffin. Here you see. Dry sand where they walked out on the pier.
Steps go over to the side there. Pretty shallow water to dump a guy.
Oh, wait a minute now. Take a look down here.
Huh?
Easy.
Twisted, slippery planks.
Look, the boat was tied up. They cut it loose. They got him out there someplace where it's deeper.
Let me see that line. Sure. The rope's still dry where they cut it, not even wet from the fog yet. Only we'll never be able to see far enough with a searchlight to...
Listen. Hear the motor out there?
Huh?
Well, Johnson, there's a big live bait boat here on the other side of the pier.
What? Well, why didn't you say so? Let's steal it. Sergeant, where's the rest of that crew? Come on, Sergeant. You know, Mr. Frank, that counterpart of yours, Doyle, he's an idiot.
I suppose so.
Yeah, the big, strong boys who want excitement. Want to take care of everything themselves, don't want help.
He was apparently in pretty deep, Lieutenant. A man can't ask help when he has to admit he's dipped into his company's money.
I'm not so sure. Somebody was apparently strong-arming him. Somebody like Starky Bennett. Gets a hold on him through gambling and then twists his arm for some real money.
We picked up that motor again, Johnson. The guy aboard can hear it.
Oh, you mean so now the other boat can hear us?
Sure, they're running all right, but we're faster. Oh, cold, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Hey, listen. Yeah, we're getting closer now.
But closer to what? Is Doyle dead or alive?
Valentine, Starky gave you a lot of double talk, but somehow I don't think he'd have done that if he was the guy who hired 2 killers in Kansas City to get rid of Doyle this very same night.
Yes, that makes sense. But if Bennett didn't hire those killers...
But he'd make a great fall guy, though, wouldn't he?
Hey, wait a minute, hold it. There goes the searchlight. A lot of fog.
Lieutenant.
Hey, they're shooting. Duck down.
Don't cut that motor. Get him, Sergeant.
Yeah. Look, he's alive, Johnson. 3 guys in the boat.
Well, they can't get away now.
Those men. Those are the ones, the thugs.
But he's fighting with them.
Oh, hurry it up, Sergeant. Give it the gas.
Look out!
There he goes. He's overboard.
Cut the motor, Sergeant. Cut it.
Get a line out there, Mac. Come on.
Hey, you can see him in the water. He's swimming. Sergeant, pull it up closer, can't you?
And there goes Kansas City, out into the fog again. Can't even hear the motor. Hurry it up, will you? That guy's all right.
I can reach him. I'll get him.
Well, all right, come on, step on it.
Come on now. Here you go. Give me a hand.
Easy does it. Come on.
How are you, Doyle? You all right?
Thought I was better condition.
Well, don't just stand there, Sergeant. Get those motors going.
No, Johnson, wait a minute. We can worry about those guys when we get back to shore.
Oh, yeah. And in this fog, they can land any place they want. They'll be back in Kansas City by the time...
wait a minute. They won't get away.
Optimist.
They're pretty tough, I can tell you that.
You're quite a guy, Doyle. I'm proud of the Irish.
Well, I'm a little glad to meet you, too, this time.
But you should have asked for help a long time ago, Doyle. Like I started to tell Mr. Frank, a guy shouldn't work alone.
Especially when you're the villain of the piece, like you, Doyle.
Him?
Doyle?
Oh, sure. I went swimming for fun.
You went swimming because you knew all 3 of you couldn't get away, so you made it look good. Yeah, you have got a lot of guts.
Well, they're wet now, my friend.
Stop smiling, will you? I mean it. You'd have come back and still tried to face down your embezzlement. Still try to blame it all on a vague mix-up you cooked up with a gambler. But you hired those thugs. You're the pal of them. You even got them to rough up Frank here intentionally by mistake.
Is that so now?
Yeah, that's so. It all boils down to a convertible, Johnson. how you get into one.
What?
Yeah. A convertible has 2 doors. Well, a guy in a service station saw you riding in the front seat of that car, Doyle.
Well, what of it? They forced me to.
Well, who has to climb in the car last? Man in the front seat, isn't it? Did you ever hear of anybody being taken for a ride who got in the car last?
Hey. Really, Valentine.
All right, so it's not conclusive. But we can ask the boys. They'll be easy to find, Johnson. An embezzler needs to throw the police off his trail. Well, for years we might have dragged this bay for this guy's body.
I would have been dead. The cement.
Sure. It was a great act. All the clues. But they fit with something else. These guys didn't come down here for murder. They came to take a longer ride. They came to meet a ship. Well, ask the Coast Guard to pick up your thugs, Riley, off the nearest slow boat to China.
Valentine. No, you're wrong. I didn't do any of these things.
That's all there is, Doyle. There isn't any more. Unless you'd like to go jump in the lake.
You have just heard Go Jump in the Lake, another Let George Do It adventure. Robert Bailey was starred as George Valentine, with Virginia-Gregg as Brooksy. David Victor and Jackson Gillis wrote the story, with music by Eddie Dunstetter. Now this is yours truly inviting you to another visit with Valentine, when you will again hear what happens when you let George do it.
73 years ago, February 13th, 1950, Let George Do It here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Thank this station, support their advertisers. It's their kindness and courtesy that allow us to be with you each and every Monday at this time here on your favorite station. If you miss a day, you don't have to miss a single show. All of our shows are available on demand at classicradio.stream. That's classicradio.stream. Stream our shows. Learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. Contact me there, find our social media links, and you can always buy me a copy if you'd like to help us acquire additional collections and keep our distribution channels up and running. That's at classicradio.stream. Classicradio.stream. Thanks for tuning in on this Monday. Have a great day. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.